I saw my brother in handcuffs for a crime I committed 15 years ago. The worst moment of my life wasn't the night I committed the crime. It was the morning I saw my brother getting dragged out of his house in handcuffs, barefoot and half asleep, with his kids crying at the door. That was the moment everything I'd buried came flooding back. The guilt, the fear, the knowledge that the man I loved most in this world was about to take the fall for something I did as a cowardly 17-year-old kid. And all because I never told the truth. Let me back up. My name's Caleb. I'm 32 now. But the night that changed everything happened back when I was just 17 and a dumbass teenager with more rage than sense. Back then, we lived in a small, forgettable town in Pennsylvania. You know the type, the kind where everyone knows your name and what you ate for dinner last week. My brother Mason was 22 at the time. He was the golden boy, local football hero, full-time mechanic. Took care of me after our mom died and dad started drinking himself into a coma. I loved Mason. He was everything I wasn't. Strong, grounded, honest. And that night, I destroyed his life without even knowing it. It started with a girl. Doesn't it always? Her name was Erin. She was 2 years older than me, beautiful, and way out of my league. But one night at a party, she kissed me. I was hooked. Problem was, she had an ex. Big guy named Jake. A real prick with a temper and a reputation for starting fights he couldn't finish. Jake found out about me and Erin. He didn't take it well. Started showing up outside my classes, slashing my bike tires. One night, he cornered me outside the gas station, shoved me against a wall, and promised he'd make sure I couldn't walk right for a week. I was scared. I told Mason. He told me to stay away from Erin, said she was trouble. That just made me angrier. He didn't get it. Erin made me feel seen. So I kept seeing her. And Jake kept coming after me. One night, I snapped. I waited for Jake behind the bowling alley. I had Dad's old crowbar with me. My hands were shaking. My heart felt like it was trying to crawl up my throat. When Jake came around the corner, I saw red. I hit him. Once. Then again. And again. Until he stopped moving. I thought he was dead. I ran. Straight to Mason. He took one look at me, blood on my shirt, tears in my eyes, and said, "What did you do?" I couldn't speak. He drove me back. Jake was alive, but barely. Mason called 911, told them he found Jake like that. Said he was just passing by. The cops bought it. Jake was unconscious for 2 days. When he came to, he couldn't remember anything. Case went cold. Mason never told a soul. But something in him changed. He stopped going out. Stopped laughing. The light behind his eyes dimmed. He protected me. Took my sin and swallowed it whole. And I let him. 15 years passed. I moved away. Built a life. Got married. Got a job. Tried to forget. But Mason stayed. Took care of Dad until he passed. Married his high school sweetheart. Had 2 kids. Ran the shop. Then 2 weeks ago, I got a call from our cousin Sarah. They just arrested Mason, she said, her voice shaking. Something about that Jake guy? He's pressing charges. Says he remembered everything. I laughed at first. Remembered? After 15 years? But it wasn't a joke. They reopened the case. Found DNA. My DNA. But it was Mason's house it was found in. My shirt. The one I wore that night. He'd kept it. Hidden it away. Maybe out of guilt. Maybe to remind himself. And now, they thought it was his. I flew back that night. Stood outside the police station, watching my brother get shoved into the back of a cruiser. He looked at me once. Didn't say a word. Didn't have to. The guilt nearly crushed me. Because this time, I couldn't pretend it wasn't happening. This time, I had to make a choice. Let my brother take the fall. Or finally tell the truth. Even if it destroyed everything. I didn't sleep that night. Not a second. Just kept walking from one side of the motel room to the other like a ghost stuck in a loop. The air felt heavy, like it was pressing down on my chest, reminding me with every breath. Mason was in a jail cell because of me. My phone vibrated on the nightstand. My wife. Again. I stared at her name glowing on the screen, then flipped it over. What was I supposed to tell her? That the life I'd built, the clean, successful, suburban version of myself, was built on a lie? That my brother, the man who held me up through every storm, was now drowning because I never grew the spine to come clean? At 6:17 a.m., I walked out of the motel. The sky was still gray, the streets quiet. I drove to the county jail, parked across from the chain-link fence, and just sat there, hands trembling on the wheel. Visiting hours didn't start for another 2 hours. I waited. When they finally let me in, I wasn't ready. Mason was already sitting behind the glass. Orange jumpsuit, wrists chained to the metal table like some kind of violent offender. But his face, God, his face. He looked like he hadn't slept either. Dark circles, cracked lips, eyes that still somehow managed to look calm. And then he smiled. That same crooked smile he used to give me when I skinned my knees as a kid, when Mom died, when Dad started yelling instead of talking. "Hey, little brother," he said, like this was just another Tuesday. I sat down across from him, swallowed the lump in my throat. "What the hell are you doing, Mason?" He shrugged, calm as ever, holding it together, like always. "This isn't your mess," I said. "It never was. You shouldn't be here." He tilted his head. "Caleb, we both know that's not how the world works. I saw you that night. I saw what it did to you. You were 17. You were scared. So you decided to ruin your life for mine?" My voice cracked. "That makes sense to you." He looked away for a moment. "No, but it felt necessary." I stared at him through the thick glass. "They found the shirt, Mason. The one I wore that night. It still had my DNA." His jaw tightened just slightly. "Then they'll convict me on that. Why didn't you get rid of it?" He hesitated. "Because I needed to remember." "Remember what?" He met my eyes again. "What it means to love someone enough to carry their worst moment." That broke something in me. I pressed my palm to the glass, as if I could reach through and pull him out, take it back, all of it. That night, the silence, the 15 years of pretending I wasn't a coward. "Mason," I whispered, "I can't let you do this." "You don't have a choice," he said gently. "Not unless you're ready to burn it all down." "I am," I said without thinking. "I'll confess. I already wrote the letter." He blinked, surprised for the first time. "You did?" I nodded. "Last night. Every detail. I was going to deliver it this morning." He leaned forward, chains clinking softly. "Then think carefully, Caleb. Because once you do that, there's no going back. You lose everything." "I don't care." "Yes, you do." His words stopped me cold. "You've got a wife," he said. "A job. A reputation. A life you fought to build. You walk into that DA's office, and all of it goes up in flames." "I deserve that." Mason exhaled slowly, looking me over like he was seeing someone new. Or maybe like he was remembering the scared teenager who came running to him 15 years ago. "Maybe," he said quietly. "But I made peace with my choice a long time ago. You don't have to throw yourself into the fire to repay me." "I'm not doing it for you," I said. "I'm doing it because I can't keep living like a ghost." That silence between us stretched long and sharp. Finally, Mason nodded. "Then do it," he said. "But do it all the way. No half measures. No hesitations. If you're going to tear your life down, make sure it's for the truth, not just the guilt." When the guard came to take him away, he didn't look back. And I walked out of that building like a man walking into a storm. That afternoon, I sat in my rental car outside the DA's office with the letter clutched in my hand. I watched people come and go, laughed to myself at how normal the world looked while mine was on the edge of collapse. Then I stepped inside, and everything I'd built, every lie, every false smile, every clean shirt and polite handshake, came with me. Because this time, I wasn't leaving Mason behind. The envelope in my hand felt heavier than it should have, like it knew what it carried could end a life. Or maybe rebuild one. I wasn't sure anymore. I walked into the district attorney's office just after 9 a.m., heart pounding like it wanted out of my chest. The woman at the front desk looked up from her computer, chewing a pen cap. Her name tag read Marlene. "Help you?" she asked, bored. I placed the envelope on the counter. "This needs to go to the assistant district attorney. It's a confession." That word made her blink. She stopped chewing, sat up straighter. "You what?" "It's about the Marks case. Mason Marks. I'm his brother." Now her eyebrows jumped. She picked up the envelope slowly, like it might detonate. "I'll get someone." 5 minutes later, a tall man in a gray suit came out. Mid-40s, close-cropped hair, jaw sharp enough to cut glass. "Caleb Marks." "Yeah. Follow me." His office was cold and clinical. A single folder on the desk. One chair for me. One for him. No warmth. No window. "I'm ADA Jonathan Klein," he said. "Let's hear it." So I told him. All of it. Aaron. Jake. The alley. The crowbar. The blood. Mason covering for me. I laid it bare. 15 years of guilt unspooled across that desk in less than 15 minutes. When I finished, Klein just looked at me. "You do realize what you're confessing to?" "Yes." assault with a deadly weapon, intent to do serious bodily harm, potential attempted murder. Yes, you're aware your brother has been cooperative, never confessed, and the only new evidence tying anyone to the scene is your shirt. Yes. He leaned back, studying me like a riddle that didn't quite solve. Why now? Because it's time. Because you feel guilty? Because my brother's in a cage for something I did. He didn't write anything down, just stared at me for a while. Then, we'll need to verify your story. You'll likely be charged, maybe indicted, could go to trial, could end in prison. I know. He paused. Well, he said finally, you're either the dumbest man I've ever met, or the bravest. Probably both. He didn't smile, didn't thank me, just stood up and walked me to the door. We'll be in touch, Mr. Marks. Outside, the air felt heavier than when I'd gone in. The sky was overcast. Traffic moved like nothing had changed. But something had. Even if no one else could see it yet, I could feel it in my bones. That night, I called my wife. I told her everything. From that night behind the bowling alley to the jail visit. The letter. The confession. There was a long silence. Then she said quietly, "Come home." I did. We sat at the kitchen table for hours, not touching, not speaking much, just breathing in the wreckage. And when our son came downstairs in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes and calling, "Daddy," I broke. Held him so tight he squirmed. Because I didn't know how many more mornings I'd have like that. Then the phone rang. The jail. It was Mason. I heard, he said softly. I had to. He didn't argue. Just breathed into the line. I love you, Caleb. I love you too. We didn't say anything else. We didn't need to. Because the wheels were already turning, and neither of us could stop what came next. The knock came 2 days later, not a polite one. 3 hard thuds on the front door that rattled the hinges. I already knew who it was before I opened it. 2 detectives. One in uniform, one in a gray windbreaker that screamed plainclothes, but definitely cop. The taller one spoke first. Caleb Marks. Yes. You're under arrest for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. You have the right to remain silent. The words kept coming, but I stopped hearing them. I turned to my wife. She was standing in the hallway in her robe, hands over her mouth. Our son peeked out from behind her, confused. "Daddy," he whispered. That word cracked something in my chest. "I'm so sorry," I said to both of them, as the cuffs clicked around my wrists. They didn't even give me time to put on shoes. The ride to the station was quiet. I stared out the window while the radio hummed softly in the background. A weather report, then traffic, then Taylor Swift. I almost laughed at the absurdity. At the precinct, they took my fingerprints, my photo, my belt and shoelaces. A steel door shut behind me like the world had finally decided to call in the debt I'd been avoiding for 15 years. My arraignment was the next morning. Bail was set, $50,000. I wasn't surprised. My wife posted it within hours, even though I told her not to. When I stepped out, she was waiting in the hallway. She didn't run into my arms. She didn't cry. She just looked at me, tired and worn. "Do we need to talk to a lawyer?" she asked. "I already have one." "You should have told me sooner." "I know." We drove home in silence. The fallout started the next day. My job? They temporarily suspended me while they reviewed the situation. Translation: don't come back. The local paper ran a short piece about the case being reopened. My name was in the headline. A friend from high school texted me a screenshot with a WTF and a shocked emoji. I didn't respond. But the worst was Mason's wife. She called me that night. "Are you insane?" she said, voice shaking. "Do you know what you've done?" I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor. "I know what I'm trying to do." "No, you're trying to play hero. You think this fixes everything?" "It's the truth. Truth doesn't pay for a lawyer, Caleb. Truth doesn't keep Mason out of prison. He's being dragged through this all over again. And now our kids are asking why their uncle's a criminal and their dad's not home." I closed my eyes. "I'm sorry." "No," she snapped. "You don't get to be sorry. You get to be responsible." Then she hung up. I couldn't argue with her. She was right. That night, I found the old photo album in our storage closet, the one Mason gave me the day I moved out for college. Inside, there was a picture of us at ages 10 and 15, arms slung over each other's shoulders, both sunburned and grinning like fools. I stared at that photo for a long time, because somewhere between that day and this one, I'd become a man who forgot what loyalty meant, and a brother who waited 15 years to finally act like one. The next morning, the phone rang. It It was ADA Klein. "We've reviewed your statement," he said. "And you're telling the truth." Jake verified it. His memory's still hazy, but he recalls the alley, the crowbar, and a voice that wasn't your brother's. I didn't speak. "We're dropping the charges against Mason," he said. "But you're still going to trial." I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. "Understood." He paused. "You're not a saint, Mr. Marks. You're a man trying to make a mess right. That's all I've got left." He hung up. I leaned back against the wall and closed my eyes. Mason was free, and I was finally exactly where I deserved to be. The courthouse looked smaller than I remembered. I used to ride past it on my bike as a kid, never imagining I'd walk through those doors as a defendant. But that's the thing about consequences. They don't care what you imagined. They just arrive. My trial date was set for the end of the month. My lawyer, Scott Denton, was a calm, gray-haired man with a voice like gravel and the patience of a monk. He'd defended people like me before, men who confessed too late, hoping the truth would outweigh the damage. "You're lucky," he told me during our first meeting. 15 years ago, this would have been a slam dunk for the prosecution. But now, memory fades. Witnesses disappear. And frankly, juries don't like wasting time on ghosts. "So I might walk?" He squinted at me. "Might. Depends if they want blood or closure." That night, I sat in the living room while my wife put our son to bed upstairs. I heard them laughing, a bath splashing, then the soft creak of the bedroom door closing. When she came downstairs, she didn't sit next to me. She stood across the room, arms crossed. "Do you want to tell me what kind of sentence you're facing?" 5 to 10, I said, "depending on how they charge it." She nodded. No tears, no anger, just silence. "I'm trying," I said, "to make this right." "I know," she said quietly, "but that doesn't mean we don't have to live in the wreckage." I didn't have a reply. She went to bed without another word. The next day, I got a message from Mason. "Meet me at the old shop." The auto shop our dad used to run, the one Mason kept alive long after I left town. I pulled into the lot just before sunset. The place looked almost the same. Oil stains on the concrete. The same rusted sign with our family name barely legible. Mason was already there, leaning against the hood of an old Chevy he was fixing up for a neighbor. He didn't smile when he saw me. "Why now?" he asked. I didn't pretend to misunderstand. "Because I couldn't carry it anymore." He shook his head. "You left me holding it for 15 years, Caleb. I know. You built a life while I stayed here. Took care of Dad. Paid the bills. Buried the past." "You didn't bury it," I said. "You just let it eat you alive in silence." He looked away. "Do you want me to say thank you?" he asked. "For finally doing the thing you should have done as a kid?" "No. I just wanted you to know. I never forgot what you did for me. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking for the chance to face it." Mason stared at me for a long time. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a key. He tossed it to me. "I rebuilt the back office," he said. "If you need space, to think, to breathe, whatever, it's yours. For as long as you're still around." I caught the key without speaking. Because sometimes, forgiveness doesn't sound like an apology. Sometimes, it sounds like, you can stay. The first day of trial felt like walking into my own funeral, only slower. I wore the one suit I owned, the same one I'd worn to my father's funeral and Mason's wedding. The irony wasn't lost on me. My wife sat behind me in the gallery. She didn't speak. She didn't touch my shoulder. But she came. That was something. The courtroom was filled with whispers, low murmurs like the hum of guilt come alive. Jake was there too, sitting at the front, staring straight ahead. He didn't look at me once. When the charges were read aloud, I felt the weight of every word like a hammer to the ribs. Aggravated assault. Intent to cause bodily harm. Use of a deadly weapon. My lawyer leaned over. "Breathe, Caleb." I did. Barely. The prosecution went first. Their opening was methodical, dry. They painted a picture of a 17-year-old with a crowbar and rage issues. They showed the photo of Jake from the hospital, bruised, unconscious, blood dried at the temple. I couldn't look at it. Then Jake took the stand. He walked like a man still chasing his balance after all these years. "Do you remember the attack?" the DA asked. Jake nodded. "Some of it. Not all." "What do you remember?" He took a long breath. "There was yelling. I remember pain. I remember someone screaming. And I remember a voice that wasn't Mason's." "Could you see who it was?" Jake hesitated. "No. But the voice, it was higher. Panicked. Younger." Do you believe that voice belonged to Caleb Marks? Jake looked at me for the first time and nodded. My heart punched my ribs. Scott stood slowly. Cross-examination. You say you didn't see who attacked you? No. Did you see Mason Marks that night? No. But you're sure the voice wasn't his? Yes. You're aware Mason was arrested and nearly prosecuted 15 years ago. Jake looked down. I heard, but I couldn't remember then. And now you can? I remember. Pieces. Scott paced. Isn't it true you were drunk that night? Yes. Hi. Jake's jaw clenched. Yes. No further questions. Jake stepped down without looking back. Then it was my turn. I took the stand. Swore on the Bible I hadn't opened since my mother's funeral. I told the story. Not just the facts. The fear. The panic. The blind rage. The guilt. I told it all. When I finished, you could hear the courtroom breathing again, like they'd all been holding it the whole time. The DA tried to dismantle me. Why wait 15 years? Because I was a coward. So this is about clearing your conscience? No. It's about telling the truth, even if it costs me everything. Do you expect sympathy? No. Do you believe this makes you a better man? No. Just an honest one. After that, they recessed. Outside, the sky was overcast, same as it had been that night 15 years ago. I sat on the courthouse steps alone, until Mason came and sat beside me. We didn't speak for a while. Then he said, "You sounded like a man." I nodded. "I'm trying." He handed me a coffee. "You might not walk away from this. I know. But if you do, we rebuild. You and me." I looked over at him. Even after everything, especially after everything. The verdict didn't come right away. 3 days of waiting. 3 days of pacing, praying, second-guessing everything I'd ever said on that stand. I slept maybe 4 hours total. On the third morning, Scott called. "They've reached a decision." My heart stalled. "They're reading it at noon." By 11:30, I was sitting in that same courtroom. Same judge, same jurors, same hard bench under my spine. My palms were damp. My suit smelled like nerves. The jury filed in. 12 faces that now felt like gods. The foreman stood, paper in hand. "In the case of the Commonwealth versus Caleb Marks, we find the defendant." My breath hitched. "Guilty on the lesser charge of assault in the second degree." I didn't hear the rest. Just that one word ringing in my ears. "Guilty." Scott leaned over. "That's the best we could have hoped for. No felony intent. It means probation's possible. Maybe even a suspended sentence." But I couldn't feel anything. Not relief. Not fear. Just silence. Later, outside, the sky had finally broken. Rain falling like the world was rinsing itself clean. My wife was waiting beneath the awning. She didn't say anything at first. Then, "You're still you." "I don't know what that means anymore," I said. "It means you're not running. And maybe that's all we need right now." She took my hand. It was the first time she'd touched me in weeks. That night, Mason came over. We sat on my porch under a wet sky with 2 beers and more unspoken things between us than either of us could name. "You're free," I said. He looked at me like he wanted to argue, then shook his head. "I've never been free, Caleb. Not really. Not since that night." "I'm sorry. I know you are." We sat in silence for a while. Then he said, "You know what I remember most from that night? Not the blood. Not your face. Not even Jake." "What then?" He looked over. "The way you looked at me. Like I was the only person left in the world who could fix it." "You were." He took a long drink. "Well, I didn't fix it. I just buried it. And now here we are." I stared out into the rain. "Maybe digging it up is how we start fixing it." He nodded. "Maybe." He stood up to leave, then paused at the steps. "We're gonna be all right, Caleb. It's just gonna take some time." Then he was gone, and I sat there, watching the rain wash over the sidewalk, wondering if redemption ever really comes, or if some debts you just carry forever. 2 months after the verdict, I stood in front of a group of 15 teenagers at a local youth program. Some were slouched in their chairs. Others looked half asleep. A few were clearly only there because a judge told them to be. I cleared my throat. "My name is Caleb Marks. I'm here to talk about what happens when you bury the truth for so long. It starts to rot everything you've built." A kid in the back smirked. I didn't blame him. I wouldn't have believed me either. But I kept going. I told them the story, not the polished, courtroom version. The real one. The fear. The guilt. The brother who sacrificed everything for a scared kid with a crowbar and a temper. When I finished, no one clapped. It wasn't that kind of talk. But a girl with purple hair raised her hand. Did it help, she asked. Telling the truth? I didn't answer right away. Then, it didn't undo the damage. But it stopped the bleeding. She nodded. That night, I got home to find a note on the fridge. Dinner's in the oven. Took Ethan to my mom's for the weekend. Don't wait up. We're okay. Not fixed, but okay. I stared at that word for a long time. Okay. It wasn't love songs and laughter, but it was something. The shop was quiet when I stopped by the next day. Mason was under a '93 Ford, oil dripping from the chassis like it was bleeding out. You want to hand me the socket wrench, or just stand there judging my alignment? He grunted. I handed him the wrench. When he slid out from under the car, grease on his face, sweat soaking his collar, I realized how much older he looked. Like the past 15 years had finally caught up to him. I signed the shop over to you, he said. I blinked. What? You're not going to prison. You're stuck here now. Might as well do something with your hands. I don't know anything about. You'll learn. He wiped his hands and clapped me on the back. It's yours. Call it penance. I wanted to argue, to protest. But for once, I didn't. Because maybe this was what rebuilding looked like. Not some grand gesture, but slow work. Dirty hands. Long days. Forgiveness hammered out over time and torque. Weeks passed. Then months. I got my sentencing, 2 years probation, community service, and a record that'll follow me forever. But I'm not hiding anymore. Mason comes by the house on Sundays. My wife started making him lemon bars, the way Mom used to. Our son calls him Uncle Mace, like nothing ever happened. And sometimes, when the shop is quiet, I sit in that back office Mason rebuilt, the one he let me stay in during the worst of it. And I think about that night behind the bowling alley. About how a single swing of a crowbar changed 2 lives. And how 15 years later, the truth changed them again. We can't undo what's done. But sometimes, if you're lucky, you get a second chance to carry it together. It's funny what sticks with you after the dust settles. Not the headlines. Not the court transcripts. Not even the mugshot. Though yeah, that one still floats around the internet when someone decides to dig up the past. No, what sticks is the quiet. The sound of my son's footsteps at 6 a.m. as he climbs into our bed like nothing ever happened. The creak of the garage door opening when Mason pulls into the driveway to help me with a busted alternator. The laughter of my wife, still rare, but slowly coming back, like a song I'd forgotten the words to. That's what sticks. Last week, I gave a talk at a local high school. Same story, same guilt, same truth. Afterward, a teacher came up to me. Said her brother had been in juvie for 3 years before anyone believed his side of the story. Said what I did took guts. I smiled and told her it didn't feel like courage. It felt like finally stopping a lie I'd been choking on for half my life. She nodded, tears in her eyes. Sometimes that's all the kids need. Proof that it's not too late to do the right thing. Not too late. That's the phrase that echoes most now. Because for a long time, I believed I'd missed my window. That redemption was only for people who didn't wait until everyone else paid the price. But here's the thing. The damage doesn't get undone. Mason still flinches when he hears police sirens. My wife still stares at the front door longer than she should when I'm late coming home. And me? I still wake up some nights thinking I'm 17 again. That Jake's lying in that alley and I haven't made the choice yet. But then I open my eyes. I breathe. And I remember, I did make the choice. Late? Yeah, but not too late. And that's enough. Most days. 3 years later, I watched my son take his first swing with a wrench. He was 10. Same age I was the first time Mason showed me how to siphon oil out of Dad's Oldsmobile. Except this time, we were under a different roof. My roof. The shop was clean, humming with old radios and the scent of motor grease and lemon-scented hand wipes. Lefty Lucy, I said. He grunted. I know, Dad. Mason laughed from the other side of the bay. Kid's already better than you. Shut up and fix the carburetor, I shot back. It felt good, natural almost. Like we'd always been this version of ourselves. But it had taken so long to get here. That night, after dinner, I found my son at the kitchen table, working on a drawing. I leaned over. Whatcha making? He held it up, a crayon sketch of the shop. 3 stick figures. One had a wrench. One had glasses. One was holding a coffee cup. That's you, he said, pointing at the one with the wrench. That's Uncle Mason. And that's me. I blinked, caught off guard by how steady my voice was when I said, looks good. Miss Thompson says we have to write about someone brave for class tomorrow. I picked you. I swallowed. Why me? He shrugged like it was obvious. Because you told the truth, even when it was scary. I kissed his head, told him to get ready for bed, then walked out to the porch, closed the door behind me, and sat on the steps. The night was cool, quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't ask questions. I thought about that sketch for a long time. Because for years, I thought bravery was about facing down the world. But maybe real bravery is facing down your own reflection and not looking away when it finally tells the truth. Mason joined me a few minutes later, 2 beers in hand. He sat down without a word, handed me one, then looked out over the yard. Shop's gonna need a new roof soon, he said. I'll get to it. He nodded. We drank in silence. And for the first time in forever, I didn't feel like I owed the world a confession. Just a life I could live without lying.